Does Oppenheimer have competition? Let's talk about it. What's up, Flick fans? Welcome back to the channel. Martin Scorsese is back. Today we're talking his brand new feature, 3.5 hours long. Is it worth it? Let's do it.
Is it worth it? Let me work it.
So members of the Osage tribe in the U.S. are murdered under mysterious circumstances in the 1920s, sparking a major FBI investigation. Leonardo DiCaprio plays Ernest Burkhart, Robert De Niro plays his uncle, William Hale, and Lily Gladstone plays Mollie Burkhart. This movie is rated R. For violence, grisly images, and language. The imagery is something that sticks in my head. I want to talk about that first because the haunting, not only the haunting scenes and sequences, but the haunting ideas that are at play. I mean, in the first half of the film, the betrayal by certain characters, and just the idea that you think you can trust people, and this entire tribe, the Osage people, they had their trust put into Robert De Niro's character. And in comes Leo as Ernest, who is presented to us, and we know he's not, but he's presented to us as a protagonist of sorts. Now, there's something about his character to where you say there's something off. He's very easily persuaded, especially by his uncle, who seems like just the best, nicest guy, and he says it at the beginning of the film. Well, he's a great guy. He wouldn't,
It's the biggest piece of dog shit.
But as the film progresses, as this romance sparks, as you hear more of these subtleties within the dialogue, you begin to see all of these things happening. Now, you know what's going on deep down, but it's up to the film to kind of reveal these things to us in a manner that keeps us compelled, not only for such a long runtime, but for a story with so much there. There is a lot to this story, and I haven't read the book that this is based off of, but I'm sure there is plenty, even within this lengthy runtime, that was left on the table. And one of the complaints that I'm seeing and hearing on Twitter right now, and I have my thoughts and opinions, I'll share that here in just a second, but it is the idea that we didn't get as much from the perspective of Lily Gladstone's character. We'll talk about the performance, but we didn't get as much as we needed to, and really from the Osage perspective in general. And with that, I somewhat agree. I do feel like there was a bit of a missed opportunity for this movie to shift focus just a little bit and give us more of what was on their plate. Now, we see the emotions. We're seeing how they're somehow, I don't know how, dealing with all of these murders happening, trying to recover from each event, and then someone else will die. Someone else will die. Who's doing it? Someone needs to come investigate. And the first half of this film, it almost feels hopeless because things keep happening. Nothing is getting done. It will make you angry as a viewer. But of course, part of that is through Martin Scorsese, the way he's telling the story, the way he's, keeping it as upbeat as he possibly can. But there is something about this slower pacing that almost feels necessary to tell the story that they're trying to tell here. So while we're on the subject of the Osage, what they have to deal with throughout this entire film, and Lily Gladstone specifically, let's talk about this Oscar-worthy performance. Now, I posed the question in my thumbnail, is this Best Picture worthy? We'll get to that. Is it Best Actor, Actress, Supporting Actor worthy? I believe so. And as good as Leo is, it's hard to say this is the best of his entire career. I don't know.
You sure about that? You sure about that?
And as spectacular as it is to once again see Robert De Niro and Scorsese in the cinema together, collaborating on a project. De Niro, man, if you've been watching his comedies lately and you're just like, he's lost it, watch this film. That being said, Lily Gladstone is the heart and soul of this film. I believe her character is so integral and important to the emotions that you're feeling, and a lot of people are saying, well, I wanted to see her on screen more, and I agree when it comes to her perspective and really the perspective of the Osage. But even when she's not on screen, there's something so powerful about wondering what she's going through in the background, because she's going through a lot in this film. At one point, her health is really bad, and you're sitting back wondering, like, how is what just happened that may or may not involve Leo's character affecting her? And that's the significance of her character, of her role, of her performance, and I believe she may just be the best in the entire movie.
Say what?
And like I said, the film starts out, you see why the Osage have the wealth that they have, the oil on their land, and people are slowly matriculating and moving in to try and see if they can be a part of that, whether that be going around murdering people or marrying into the family. And there is a scheme of sorts from some of our characters to where it's all about infiltrating and kind of taking over. And Leo's character, as conflicted as he is, and I truly believe he was conflicted, even though a lot of his actions are terrible in the film, there is a dark, romantic aspect to this movie to where he will do things out of love, but he will also do things because his uncle's telling him, because he's gullible. And then you have Mollie, who knows what's going on, the evil things that are happening, and yet there is still something there with her. So that relationship is the driving force of this film. Now, I do believe as much time as we get to spend with De Niro and Leo on screen together, and those scenes, those sequences, the dialogue within that, man, that's a chef's kiss. That's...
In the heat of battle, he don't miss. No. In the heat of controversy, he don't miss.
I think most of those moments are integral, and a lot of those very simple conversations, you hear the subtleties in their voice, and you start to kind of key into what they're doing and how that reflects on what they're saying, and you're like, oh, this is way more haunting. That was just as haunting as some of the actions that we see, because it's like they have no remorse for what they're doing. There's one character towards the end of the film, and you hear him just say it, and you're like, I can't believe this is real. But it is. So you're halfway through the movie. You still got almost 2 hours left. And then Jesse Plemons comes into the picture. The FBI comes in. And originally, from what I've heard, this movie was supposed to be told from the perspective of the FBI. And they changed that. Now, even with changing that, I did feel like I needed more of the Osage perspective. But I think they made the right decision. That being said, I wanted to see more Jesse Plemons. I believe there's more to his character left on the table, but the role that they play and how this story really picks up at that point, I was on the edge of my seat at that point in the movie, because that to me brought so much more to what was already slowly and ominously building. And this, in that way, when you look at how Scorsese handled this 3.5-hour runtime, I know it's long. The pacing's going to bother a lot of people. If anybody wants to complain about pacing, it's me. I've been dealing with nerve damage in my lower half for 3 weeks now. That's why I've been standing in my reviews. I had to take this into the movie theater. It actually hurt to sit there for that long, but you know what? I did it, and I liked it, but it did kind of hurt, but this helped. I also love how Scorsese kept a lot of this in the background. They're saying things on screen, and things are happening, but you don't see it play out, maybe until a little later in the movie when you get a bit of a flashback. But the way that that was handled, and not revealing your hand too early, even though we know what's actually going on, that's a great decision by Scorsese. That's why he does what he does, man. That's why he's the best in the business. Things like that. And it made this movie so much better than it actually was. And like I said, when the FBI comes in, it picks up. Jesse Plemons was good. Not on the level of the other three. And then you get some more actors in there. John Lithgow, Brendan Fraser. I've seen some people complain about how over the top he is in the film. And he is over the top. But at the same time, I'm like, that's probably how a lawyer for this guy would act. So it didn't bother me. A lot of Brendan Fraser hate on my timeline. You stop that. You won an Oscar.
One thing right was my life.
Eric Roth joined Scorsese on the screenplay, which features so many standout moments of dialogue. Thelma Schoonmaker, the all-time editor for Scorsese, once again, just spectacular work. The pacing and the editing in this film is just, it's really good. Rodrigo Prieto's cinematography is fantastic. Robbie Robertson, who just recently passed away, this was his last time composing a film, I believe. It's a very subtle score, but I called it my original reaction the heartbeat of the film, because it really just kind of elevates even the slower moments and keeps you in tune with what's happening. And finally, is Killers of the Flower Moon Best Picture worthy? When it comes to a nomination, absolutely, it's getting it. I think it deserves to get it. To tell this story on this level, even with a couple of things about the script and the perspectives that I would have changed, it was still a difficult thing to accomplish and pull off. I believe Scorsese pulled it off. The fact that he kept me invested on the level that he did was awesome. But when I'm putting it up against, we'll say Oppenheimer right now is the front runner. When I'm putting it up against Oppenheimer, I don't know if it has that magic that Oppenheimer has. The fact that that was a 3-hour runtime, but it felt like a 2-hour movie. This was 3.5 hours. Didn't quite feel that, but it did feel a little more lengthy than something like an Oppenheimer. And with a little bit of that controversy surrounding the perspective and how maybe some of the moments happening in the background could have been focused on just a bit more. For now, I believe that's what's going to keep it from overtaking something like an Oppenheimer, but I do believe as anticipation grows and people watch this movie maybe one or two more times, it's going to be in the competition just a bit more. That being said, we've got a long way to go. Before I give you guys my score, thanks so much for being here. If you enjoyed this lengthier review, be sure to drop that thumbs up down below and stay tuned. I know when I'm seeing Poor Things, there's another contender. Flower Moon is methodical, emotional, and ultimately one of Scorsese's more powerful outings. Gladstone steals every scene while Leo and De Niro are in top form. The subtle score is the heartbeat that keeps everything moving fluidly, even with the slower pacing. So this is one that had me invested. It's definitely, I mean, it feels like cinema. I know the Scorsese meme, but it feels like cinema. Watching this on the big screen in IMAX is something to behold with this cast. And put Gladstone in there with them. Maybe she's at the top. Maybe she's the best of the year. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you soon.